Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing two new rainbow themed cards, and these cards feature a brand new kit from Erin Creative called the Shine Bright Kit. I'm going to show you the kit in its entirety. It's a really great value. I did accidentally include one product in here that's actually an add-on, and I will point that out. So first up in the kit is this stamp set here. It's called the Hugs, Sunshine, Smiles, and Rainbow stamp set. Next up is the No Bad Days stamp set. I love this big sun and rainbow image in the upper left, and these sentiments are really fun, and I love how well all of these products really mix and match together. Now, next up are the dies, and here's where I accidentally included an add-on here. That die on the far left is actually an add-on. It's called the A2 Rainbow Rays dies, and it is sold separately. Now, the No Bad Days sentiment set there and that grouping of clouds and sun dies, those are included in the kit. So the one I'm pointing at on the left, that one's an add-on, but the rest of this is included in the kit. And I use all of these dies today. Next up is this rainbow die. I absolutely love this. I'm going to be using it in the second card today, and I'm going to be mixing and matching it with some of the stencils. It cuts several of these like tall, long bows and then clouds. And then finally, there's a couple stencils. There's these ray stencils, as well as the sun stencil that also has this little happy face here in the lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to be using that on the second card today. So I'm going to start out with the A2 Rainbow Rays add-on die, and I'm going to die cut a panel of heavyweight Neenah Solar White cardstock. And my original intent in this was that I was going to create kind of an inlay effect. Now, I did create an inlay effect, but you can't really tell because I added so much dimension behind it. So really, you could skip this step here and just go to the next step. But this is how I created it, and I like to let you guys really see my process and how sometimes my thought process changes as I'm creating, and let you know that that should absolutely happen. You don't have to be stuck to your original plan. So I die cut that from the panel, and you can see I left the point kind of hanging off the end, and I'm left with all of these white rays. I thought I might ink blend on these to create the color, and I decided to use colored cardstock in the end, which I'm glad that I did. But when you skip the pointed end of this A2 Rainbow Rays add-on die, it cuts off the part that holds all these rays together. So I held them together with a piece of delicate surface painter's tape and picked them up off of my die cutting plate, and then I'm going to die cut this 4 more times. So I'm going to add quite a bit of dimension behind this grouping of rays. Now, because I'm cutting the die in its entirety, these are actually staying connected together because at the point of all of these rainbow rays, they are connected by just a small amount of cardstock there. Now, they're really easy to snip apart. I'm going to show you that here in just a bit. But for now, I'm just going to die cut several of these rays to build the dimension behind my die cut. Now, for the base piece, I took the rays and I added a piece of washi tape to the back. You could use washi tape, you could use painter's tape, you could use score tape. It really doesn't matter. But I'm just kind of holding all of those rays tightly together. And then I'm going to start adding some liquid glue and stacking these rays up. Now, this is really easy because, as I mentioned before, these are all connected. So I'm adding them in one large piece. You can see on the left side where all of these rainbow rays kind of widen out, they are not connected. So I'm just making sure I get the point lined up and then going through and lining these up. Now, the liquid glue is really forgiving, and it's allowing me to kind of slide these into place. It has a little bit of open time, whereas a double-sided tape runner or tape or adhesive in that kind of fashion is not going to let me slide these into place. So now that I have 2 layers together, I'm going to add liquid adhesive again over the entire surface of this ray grouping, and then I'm going to add a third set of rays on top of that. And altogether, I ended up adding 4 layers of these white rays together to create quite a bit of dimension behind the colored rays that I'm going to add on top. Now, if you don't want to bother with stacking up all of these pieces, you can absolutely add some foam adhesive behind this. I'm just going for dimension, and sometimes I like to stack the die cuts because it gives it a nice, thick, solid base and makes it kind of feel almost like chipboard. Now, once I have that stack completed, I grabbed some colors of cardstock. I have the holographic cardstock from Erin Creative, which is that really cool rainbowy looking piece there. And the rest of these cardstocks are from Concord and Ninth. And I'm going to use that A2 Rainbow Rays dies to die cut each of these colors of cardstock. Now, I'm going to have several rays left over, so I will have enough to create several cards using these rays in a different order. But for now, I'm going to start with the pink at the top. I'm going to go to the Ballet slipper, and then I'm moving to this really nice grapefruit color. The yellow, I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. So I will make sure that I link all of these cardstocks in the YouTube description below so you know what colors I used. And like I mentioned before, they are all from Concord and Ninth. Now, as you just saw, I took my pair of scissors and just snipped apart the rays so that I could use them individually. Very easy to separate. There's just the tiniest piece of cardstock holding them together. And if you want to use them individually, you just snip them apart. So once I have them snipped apart and each ray in the color that I need, I added some liquid adhesive on top of my stacked up grouping, and I'm adding all of these rainbow rays on top of that base piece that I created. Now, this is that holographic cardstock from Erin Creative. This is actually what first drew me to Erin Creative. I saw this cardstock, I think Jennifer McGuire probably shared it. And once I went over to pick some up, I realized she has some really beautiful stamps, dies, and stencils as well. So be sure to head on over to her website and check out this kit and all of her other fabulous products. Now, I'm die cutting this glossy black cardstock, which is also from Erin Creative. I'm using the No Bad Days sentiment die that's included in the Shine Bright kit, and I'm just going to pop this out. And then I die cut that No Bad Days sentiment one more time using the Erin Creative holographic cardstock. I'm going to stack them on top of each other. Now, this sentiment die also comes with a shadow die, and I love to use Vellum for my sentiment shadows. I think it just creates a really ethereal look, but helps them to kind of stand out on the card front as well. Now, I did toy with the idea of stenciling a pattern on this card base, and you can see I actually backed that piece that I created at the very first of the video that has the opening with another piece of cardstock so that it was kind of held together. And I went back and forth as to whether or not I wanted to add some rays behind this rainbow, and I think it would be fabulous. But I ultimately decided to skip that, and instead I used the cloud dies from the kit, and I die cut some vellum. Now, these clouds have some details to them, and I found that adding a metal shim really helped the cut of these with vellum. I find that sometimes with dies and vellum, I have to use the metal shim that's included with the Gemini Junior. Sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on the die, but I found that I got a great cut when I added the metal shim into my cutting sandwich. Now, I'm taking the two No Bad Days sentiments that I die cut from the different types of cardstock, and I'm stacking them on top of each other with a slight offset. This is going to give the sentiment just a little bit of shadow and kind of a little black base, which I think is really nice contrast with all of this rainbow color going on. And then I'm taking that grouping and layering it on top of the vellum shadow, and I've used liquid adhesive for all of this. Now it's time to start assembling the card. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive to the larger cloud and kind of tuck it behind where my rainbow piece will end up on the front of my card. I'm going to do the same with the smaller cloud, and I'm kind of tucking it on the lower left side. And then I'm lining up this rainbow ray grouping into the inlay that I've created, and I'm snipping off the excess that's overhanging the end. And then I can add some liquid glue into that die cut portion that's on my card front and inlay this dimensional piece. Now, as I mentioned before, I kind of had this vision of inlaying the whole thing and kind of having this smooth look, but I decided I really wanted some dimension to help this stand out. So you could skip the inlay portion of this, and I think you would have great results as well. I just had already created it, so I went with it. Now to finish this card off, I die cut one of the sun dies from some yellow cardstock. I'm adding just a slight bit of grapefruit ink. It is a nice kind of corally orange ink from Concord and Ninth. And I'm just gonna add that on to the very tips to give it a little bit of variation. And I'm gonna tuck that behind that larger cloud that's on the upper right-hand side. I'm gonna allow it to hang off the cardstock. I did add some foam adhesive behind it. And I'm gonna snip off the excess with a pair of scissors. Now I added my card front onto a top folding A2 size card base using some foam adhesive. And I am finishing the card off with some sparkling clear sequins that I added with a little bit of liquid glue. And you can see when I tilt this in the light how beautiful that holographic cardstock is nestled in with all those beautiful rainbow cardstocks. I love the way this card turned out, and you could absolutely use one of the sentiments included in those stamp sets and stamp that on the inside of the card if you wanted to, or kind of create a little banner sentiment over the top of that as well. Now let's move on to our second card project for the day. I am using this rainbow and cloud die from the kit. This is included in the kit. And I've die cut it from several colors of cardstock. They are the same colors of cardstock that I used to die cut my rainbow rays earlier, but I did skip one or two of those colors to complete my rainbow because there's fewer bows in this rainbow than there are rays on that A2 rainbow ray die. And I'm taking these various colors of cardstock and I'm arranging them face down onto the sticky mat that I keep inside of my Misti stamping tool. Now you can definitely remove the sticky mat from the Misti stamping tool and arrange it. For whatever reason, I didn't think of that, but you're gonna see me remove it here. And like I mentioned before, these are all face down onto the sticky mat. So the back side of the die cut is facing up towards me. And now, once they're all placed, because all of these little bows and the clouds are separate pieces, I'm going to add some foam adhesive on the back, and that's going to keep them all together. So when I arrange them on the sticky mat, that's holding them in place with them all touching. I've kind of pushed them and butted them up against each other to make sure the arrangement was correct. Then I could add the adhesive on the back and remove it from the sticky mat, and I have my die all put together and ready to go. And even if you don't have a Misti stamping tool, I think that sticky mat is something really helpful to keep in your craft room to help with aligning things and holding things in place as you work. Now I'm taking this stencil here, I have taped it in place with a little bit of purple tape, and I've masked off the area with the little smiley face, and I've covered up the nose and the mouth because I want to do the eyes in this black ink. So I'm just taking a blending brush and blending some black ink over that eyelash or closed eye area. Then I'm going to buff off the excess off of my stencil using a dry cloth. And I will remove the little mask that I created over the nose and mouth. And then I'm going to grab some pink ink. This is Coral Reef ink from Pinkfresh Studio. And I'm going to blend it over the nose and mouth area. Now, it didn't bother me that the eyes were not covered up because I used a black ink. So this pink ink isn't going to show if it gets into that eye area. So I just blended right over that, wiped off the excess, and then I can remove the stencil and I have this adorable smiley face on my cloud and rainbow die cut. And I think that is so cute. Now I'm going to add the sentiment, and I'm again using the No Bad Days die set included in the kit. I've cut it from some holographic cardstock and the shadow from some vellum. And I'm using some liquid adhesive to adhere it onto the left side of that rainbow, overlapping that smaller cloud there. Now for my card base, I decided to create a mini slimline card. And so this cardstock is Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock. It's cut to 6 inches by 7 inches and then scored along the 7-inch side at 3.5. So my finished card size is 3.5 by 6 inches. And I'm taking some Mint to Be ink from Catherine Pooler and a blending brush, and I'm blending this mint ink onto the background just to add kind of a little something. The white card base just felt like a little flat and a little plain. So I added the ink blending, and then I decided that I was going to bring in kind of this sun ray stencil here. It also has that adorable face on it. And I'm going to blend the same Mint to Be ink over the top of the stencil onto my card front. And this is going to add just a few rays, kind of tone on tone, coming out from that larger cloud with the happy face. And I really do think that this was just the little something that this card needed to take it from a little bit flat and boring, give it a little texture and color in the background, and kind of really make it feel complete. And you can see just those really subtle rays when I remove that stencil. Now I am going to stamp the hearts from the stamp set included in the kit, kind of where they're going to peek out from behind the rainbow. And this Because I Love You stamp, which is also from one of the stamp sets in the kit, onto my card front. And I'm using my Debbie stamping tool to just apply pressure evenly over those stamps. And then you can see when I lift up the Misti lid, I have a perfectly stamped image. I added my rainbow die cut onto the front using the foam adhesive that was already on the back, and finished this off with some sparkling clear sequins. And you can see that holographic cardstock added into these rainbows really set them off. And I love how, depending on the light, that holographic cardstock really changes colors and adds to the rainbow theme of these cards. And it's perfect for sentiments as well. So there you have it, a couple of rainbow themed cards, and I hope these cards make you smile. And if you want to see more inspiration featuring this Shine Bright card kit from Erin Lee Creative, be sure to head on over to my Instagram. Over there we are doing an Instagram hop. A bunch of us have created some adorable cards featuring this new Shine Bright kit, and I think you're going to love it. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I will have that direct linked below. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on YouTube so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And if you loved this video, be sure to share it with a friend too. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.